Hello, my lovelies. I'm Ginny O, the author with no last name, and today I want to talk about whether or not we should be reading books, contemporary books, in our own genre. Now, last year, somewhere around this time, I was creating videos for National Novel Writing Month, and I believe I said in one of those videos that we need to be reading contemporary fiction in our genre. And I probably meant to go back and do a longer video on that, and I forgot. So today we are going to talk about that, and it's going to be like a half-an-hour video. And I have answered this question over on Tumblr for Daryl, because Daryl brought this up to me, and thank you, Daryl. And I am going to try to talk about, what I said on Tumblr and expand on it, just in case you don't have a Tumblr. And maybe I will do a video about how to tumble. So, do we need to read contemporary genre fiction? Yes. There are professional reasons and there are creative reasons. And first off, though, you might have a fear. Fears are irrational. That's fine. Fears are okay. You might have a fear that you will read a book in your genre, published in the last 5 to 10 years, and find your idea in the book. And then you're afraid that you're going to be accused of plagiarism because you can't prove you came up with this idea before you read this other book. Well, for one, you came up with this idea before you read the other book. On a personal level, you're fine. On the other level, if you were going to be any type of creative, please look into copyright. Now, you need to look into the copyright of whatever region you're going to be publishing in. And because I live in the United States of America, I looked into copyright mostly for the United States. And in the United States, as with most everywhere else in the world that I'm aware of, ideas are not copyrightable. Okay? It is the execution of ideas that are copyrightable. So we have cyborg going on adventures solving crime, kind of. That is not copyrightable. The execution, Martha Wells' execution of Murderbot, going on adventures solving crimes, that is what is copyrightable. What she wrote in these books, is copyrightable. Now, some of the ideas that she has in her world building, you might want to. Those aren't technically copyrightable. It's the way she executed them in her book that's copyrightable. It's the actual words on the page. So, when you are reading contemporary genre books in your genre, and you're going, I'm worried I'm going to see my ideas already executed on a page. You should be taking solace in this, because that means your ideas are publishable. People want them. There are books out there with similar ideas to yours in them, and they have sold. So the publishers, hopefully, will be wanting more books similar to them. It is the way you execute those ideas, the way you bring your own inner soul, your personality, your sense of humor, your life experience to the page that makes those ideas unique to you, and therefore the execution of the story is copyrightable. I cannot copyright biker werewolves. Other people want to write about biker werewolves, they're more than happy to do so. The only thing I can copyright are the books I've already written about them. That's it. So don't let fear paralyze you and cripple you from reading what could be, I don't know, a lot of really great books, a lot of mediocre books, you know, books that you wonder how they got published, but it's just a rich world of possibilities out there, all because you're afraid somebody else is going to have an idea like mine. Well, of course, you know, you've got social media, you've got the zeitgeist, you've got the social consciousness of all mankind. It's, you know, the execution of your idea that makes it unique and great, right? Do not let fear stop you from writing what you love. That is the thing. Don't let it paralyze you. Just throw yourself onto that horn. It will be a lot less painful than just sitting there frozen in indecision. There is some professional reasons why, though, you need to read contemporary novels. Number one is a creative one. And I'm going to go over this one first instead of second because the second one doesn't matter unless you do the first. So, creatively, you need to know what's going on out there in the publishing world. How these stories are structured, what type of stories are already out there, what has been done, what has been published and seen. Okay? And the more genres you're writing in, the more genres you need to read. That's kind of the problem. So you need to be able to know what type of stories are out there that are similar to the ones you're writing. Okay, and you need to know what type of storylines have been done over and over and over and over until they stopped being genre types and they've become cliches at this point. Like, you know, if you don't read what other people are writing, okay, you are going to write something, submit it to an agent, and the agent's going to be like, oh, I've seen this 100 times. Cliche, boring, in the bin. You know, like, so you need to know what's out there to be able to go, is my story as interesting, refreshing, and new as I think it is, or has 101 other people had this same idea, and maybe you need to write that idea to get it out of your system, that's fine, and maybe something about the idea that you love will, you know, stick with you, and you'll be like, wait, what if I do twist it here, or do this permutation here? So it might take 2 or 3 drafts or tries of within that idea and those characters that you love and the world that you love to get something that, you know, isn't cliche. Maybe it's tropey, but it doesn't have to be stereotyped and cliche. Another thing is, if you are reading only books that are from turn of the century or even mid-century, you're going to be inundated in a lot of stereotypes and a lot of bigotry towards different groups. And you need to be reading contemporary fiction to see how contemporary fiction deals with those same groups, so you don't bring those stereotypes and bigotry into your work. Because you aren't going to be published, honestly. And if you do end up published, there might be a big scandal once the reviewers get a hold of it. So you need to know how today's authors and today's publishers are dealing with stereotypes, with bigotry, with, you know, things like that, that against people of color, against women, against the LGBTQIA community, against the neurodivergent. You need to know how those are portrayed in today's work. So you don't bring the stereotypes and the bigotry of the past from the 50s and 60s, or even the turn of the century, to the present. There's that too. Now, professionally, the second thing is, not all agents do this because not all agents find it to be useful in their line of work. Some of them just don't want to deal with it, but there are agents who are going to ask you for comparison novels. They might ask it in the query. They might ask for it later when they're after they've read your full, or after like a 3-chapter or whatever. They might ask you, well, what novels do you see yourself comparison to? And what a comparison novel is a novel published in the last 5 years that is not from the New York Times bestseller list. Okay, not from an, not really from an established author either. They want you to know if you are paying attention to what's selling now, to today's voice, like what's going on in the publishing world, in the publishing industry. Are you actually serious about this career as an author? Okay, and so if you're me, I can't go and say, well, the Lone Prospect has the action and adventure and case style structure of Harry Dresden with the slice of life family dynamics of Anne Bishop without the dark fantasy. I can't say that because those are both established authors and they're both on the New York Times bestseller list. So I would have to go and read, debut urban fantasy. The problem is there has not been a lot of debut urban fantasy or debut fantasy to be able to go, so this is what it's like, this is who it is, blah, blah, blah. Which was one of my problems when it came to querying. My book is not really a lot like, stylistic content-wise, it's not like a lot of other books, which means, to an agent, it might, and to a publishing house, it's not going to sell. They're looking for a kind of, it's like a litmus test of your humility and a litmus test of how up are you on today's people. Like, do you know who your peers are? And because if you are writing a book in the style of Tolkien, Tolkien wouldn't sell today. He would not sell as a debut author today, no matter how much we think he's a foundation of the epic fantasy genre, which he is. But he sold back in the 60s, and that's when he was a debut, and, he's not like today. His voice, his style is not of today. It's just, you're not gonna, they're just gonna look at it, go, you think you're like Tolkien? Oh, hey, you sweet summer child, and toss it in the bin. And the older your author that you're comparing yourself to, the faster they're going to toss it. So, just see, you have to be aware of that. So finding today's voice, finding today how they treat people of today's minority groups of today, and making sure that you're showing that you're knowledgeable about today's publishing world and where your hubris is as an author, kind of thing. So that's kind of like the professional side, like, ooh. So let's talk again about the creative side. So creatively, I've already mentioned that you have to know your genre. Okay, you need to know what's the scene d'affaires, what's the building blocks of the genre that you're writing in, and how do you convey that in today's voice versus what are the cliche stereotypes. Okay, so the only way you're going to learn that is by reading, and you need to be able to read other people's books, and you need to be able to read them because sometimes you need to rest, you need that break. And they're going to help you broaden your understanding of your genre, basically. Give you more ideas, or, maybe you find ideas you don't like, and authors you don't like. So you don't read those authors, but you won't know that until you actually pick up and read their books. But creatively, as an author, you need to learn to read analytically. I am accused by one of my librarians of being an analytical reader, and it is because I am a writer, and I have gotten to that age in my life and that stage in my life where I don't have time for bad books. Like, you get 5 chapters and I'm out. And if you can't hold me in those 5 chapters, I'm just going to sit here and go, ooh, why am I not being held? But, why am I not hooked? And you need to be able to, as a writer, be able to learn to read analytically. Why does this book that you are reading grab you? Why are you sitting here and reading it all the way through? And yes, when you're younger, you're not as, critical of a reader. When you get older, you do get more critical as a reader. But if you are going to be a writer, you have to be able to be critical of other people's works, because you're going to have to turn that around and be able to apply that same type of critical eye and analyzing to your own. A lot of writing advice and a lot of, I guess, I don't know, a lot of praise of popular fiction makes it all act out like it's perfect, and you can find the formula for success in popular fiction, which is not true. Okay, so you need to find out for yourself what type of stories you want to read and like reading, and how they're set up and how they're structured, and why things work for you versus things that don't work for you, and be able to apply that to your writing. Okay, so you finish up your manuscript, you set it to the side for 2 months, then you come back and you reread it with fresh eyes. And when you're rereading it with fresh eyes, with a fresh brain, I mean, you've gone and done other things since then, you can analyze and take a step back from your work and criticize it better, to be able to say, this, and this is good. I like this. This makes me happy. But I can do X, this, and this so much better. If I don't have this scene in here, I feel completely unsatisfied. I need to put that scene in here, or I need to take out this, or this is too repetitive, or I don't feel like the characters were developed enough, or, whatever it is, the only way you're going to develop and hone that editing sense is by reading other people's books. I mean, I've read over 80 books in the last year, and I don't know how many of them I've just tossed back. And I'm going, this doesn't work for me, and this is why. And some of them I've gotten all the way through and I go, the prose is great. I see why this got published. It's not working for me. It's still, I read it all the way through, and I'm just very unsatisfied. It's still not working for me. And, then you have to sit there and, why isn't this is a perfectly fine written book. Why isn't it working for me? And that's what learning by reading, you hone that sense of, here are the dead spots. Here's what makes things unsatisfying. And, I need to know, does this ruin the mystery, or does it, actually make the mystery more intense and flavorful? Like, how do you, and when you're reading in your genre, you're going to come across a lot of stories that are set up in many different ways. So, when you're reading a story that has 2 protagonists in it, going back and forth, or maybe 3 protagonists or whatever, it's going to give you insight on what makes a story with 2 protagonists work for you. That's just the way it is. And that's the only way you're going to find out different ways of storytelling is by reading other people's books and seeing how to do it and then taking those lessons that you're learning because you're thinking critically and analyzing them and putting it to your own work. Let's see, was there... Now, the other reason why you need to do this creatively is, I know there's a lot of fear. Like I mentioned in the beginning, there's the fear factor of finding your ideas and other people's work. And I mentioned that, you know, that should be actually a solace to you because that means those ideas have been published before and that publishers are going to like them. But even more so is that readers like them. There was a guy named Stefman, and he was on Tumblr, and he wrote this comic, and it's called the Two Cakes comic. The comic has a guy, the artist, he comes and he's go, "Oh man, this guy's cake is better than mine." I mean, he has like a little 2-layer cake with one layer of frosting and a strawberry, and the other cake's like a 2-tier cake with, you know, which means it's like 4 cakes actually, and then it has lots of swirls and, you know, lots of decorations on it, and, you know, oh, his cake is better than mine. And the next scene is the audience, and the audience is going, "Holy shit, 2 cakes!" And that's, you know, that is so true. If you go out there in the world and you're seeing, you know, oh, this person has a similar idea to me, that means there's a reader out there going, "I love this book. I wish there were more books like it. Give me 2 cakes. I want more cake." You know, there's a reason why there was so much urban fantasy after Laurel K. Hamilton, Jim Butcher, and Kim Harrison really managed to shove the genre forward, you know, and Patty Briggs. You know, there was so much different urban fantasy because people are like, "Oh, we really like this noir detective type stuff in a contemporary world with all these fantasy creatures." And there was just so much of it, and there was so many different ideas going around. And, you know, some were good, some were bad, some were better than others, but readers wanted more. That's the beauty of, say, the romance genre, is that if you find something you like in the romance genre, you can generally find more of it somewhere within the romance genre, you know. And if you're reading Harlequin, it's going to be labeled, and it's going to have its own little subsection, and all you have to do is get more books out of that subsection. And if you're like, you know, that's also the beauty of pulp novels, is that, you know, they reuse the same ideas over and over and over, and people wanted that. Like, if you really want Jane Austen, hey, go to AO3. There's a huge Jane Austen section. You don't have to pay for it. It's free. It's great. It's public domain. Gotta love it. And will some of it be good? Yeah. Some of it will be bad, probably. But that's just the way it goes. You know? And then other people really liked this comic, and so they were like, so they made more comics, and I believe the ones I have are Dartnaline, Dartnaline, and so the thing is, you're going to find that even within a large audience, there's going to be people who want something just a little different. So, "Oh, that guy's cake is better than mine," you know, with your little cake with just the frosting on top and a single strawberry versus the 2-tier cake with the swirls and the other things. Or maybe you just had powdered sugar on your cake. You made a naked cake. And the audience member goes, "Yes, a cake without frosting!" You know, "I was looking for a cake without frosting. I want cake without frosting." So there are going to be people who are going to be like, "I love urban fantasy, but I'm tired of vampires. And I want an urban fantasy book without vampires." Okay, so I have an entire urban fantasy series without vampires. Just has werewolves, okay? No fae, just werewolves. You know, and that's okay. You know, the audience is being like, there is a demand for something without vampires. They're tired of vampires. Maybe they just want werewolves, or maybe they just want fae creatures. And, you know, if you just wanted fae, Laurel K. Hamilton did an urban fantasy with just fae. That was, you know, her thing. I can't recommend the later books, but the beginning books were okay. Like, you know, it's just, you can make your cake, and you can take stuff out that you don't like, and there's going to be somebody out there who wants that same type of thing. You know, they want the cake without frosting. But the only way you're going to know what you like and you don't like is by reading other people's books. And then, you know, it comes to the point where sometimes, maybe if you're writing in a really niche genre and you think you're all by yourself and you're the only one out there doing this thing. And, you know, if you publish your book in your niche genre, you might have get a new author buddy who is just like, oh my God, you made a cake? You made a cake in the same genre, the same sort of ideas? I thought I was the only one making this cake. You know, I thought I was the only one. And so, you know, you might find, you know, if you write your book and you write your ideas and you publish them, or you get them published through a traditional publisher, that there's going to be more people out there than just the readers that are looking for it. You're going to be finding other authors who are looking for it too, you know. And the only way you're going to find your author buddy is by reading their books. So, you know, reading contemporary books, it's really kind of part of your job as a writer. It's part of your job as a writer to make sure that you're up with today's writing, whether that's voice, whether that's how you portray minority groups, whether that's, you know, knowing what's actually out there, what the story ideas are, what the box is, so you can choose whether or not you're going to lampshade the box, subvert the box, or break the box. You know, you have to know the rules of the box, and you have to know how, you know, those types of stories are structured. And for professional reasons too, you know, if you're going to be traditionally published, they're going to ask. They're going to want to know who you're reading and who you think your books are like, because that's who they're going to use to say, oh, this person's going to sell so many books. And it's also good for you because it's going to hone your ability to edit. You're going to hone your author spidey senses to be like, ah, the characters are flat. There's not enough tension. There's no conflict. I need to add the third character, and maybe I need 3 protagonists, not 2. Maybe that is going to, you know, by reading other people's books, by seeing how other people do it, and by seeing how, is it satisfying for you or is it unsatisfying for you, you can figure out, you know, oh, I don't like having to be hooked 3 different times, you know, that's a little much. Or, you know, you can figure out, I don't like this info dumping. Okay, then don't put info dumping. Maybe you have to read a couple people to figure out how to weave exposition into your story without it feeling like info dumping. You know, maybe you don't like long descriptions of clothing, and that's fine. You don't have to like long descriptions of clothing. It really just depends on what you like as a writer and what you don't like as a writer, and that will, reading other books will hone you in to find out what you like and what you don't like, while also keeping you plugged into today's publishing world. And who knows, you might make author friends, you might make reader friends, you know, and you might make a librarian very happy. And I do want to point out that if you like a certain author and you're having trouble finding books like that certain author in the store or in the library or whatever on your own by just randomly picking up authors off the shelf, there is a reason why publishers have big name authors promote books by doing little author plugs on the covers. Okay, so say you're a parent or you're an adult reader and you like Stephen King. I mean, there's plenty of Stephen King books to choose from. But if you like Stephen King, the publisher has a whole bunch of other authors they want you to read that are Stephen King-like. Okay? So what they do is they give the book to Stephen King, and he creates this little tiny plug for it, and they put it on the cover. So what you need to do as a reader is you're going to be going to your library or to your bookstore, and you're going to be pulling books out of the horror section or the supernatural section or the thriller section, and you're going to be looking for Stephen King as a blurb, either on the front, on the back, or in the inside flaps. So you're going to be looking for authors Stephen King has endorsed. So, and if you're a parent, okay, and you're thinking that you don't want your teenager in the adult section of the bookstore, you don't think they're prepared for that, but they want to read Stephen King. So what you do is you go to the young adult section of your library or the bookstore, and sometimes you might need to go to the bookstore so you know what to order at the library. You go to the bookstore and you go to the young adult section and you start pulling off horror novels and you start looking for Stephen King on the cover. Not the author name, but Stephen King in the blurbs, in the blurb names. And that will tell you that this book, the publisher thinks, is like a Stephen King book, okay? And that's how you know, and it's suitable for your teenager, hopefully. I don't know if you, so if you are a writer and you like Stephen King and you want to read more authors that are contemporary authors like Stephen King, that's one way to do it. Or whoever, whatever. If you're looking for writers who are dead, if you like writers who are dead, I'm sorry, I can't help you. But if you're looking for, you know, if you know somebody that you've read in the contemporary that is still alive and still doing endorsements, that's what you need to look for. You need to look for their names in the blurbs. You know, a lot of people, and I agree in some cases, I don't like the fact that blurbs have overtaken the back of the book, or you know, have overtaken the summary. Like I even missed having the little blurbs on like the very first page when you opened up the book. There'd often be like a little excerpt of the book, so you could like skim the excerpt and see if this was something you liked before purchasing it. I miss that. But a lot of times now you're getting these blurbs, or you're getting the blurbs from, you know, from other authors praising their previous books or whatever. But use those blurbs if you're having trouble finding books like an author, a contemporary author that you read, that you want to read more books like. And that's, you know, one way to do it. I hope this helped, or gave you some good reasons to go to your local library and pick up a book published in the last 10 years. Believe me, they need you to do this, okay? Part of it is a need, because if you don't go to your library and take out the books, those books are, the library is a library. It's not an archive. Those books aren't going to stay there forever. Librarians are going to pull off books that don't get taken out, so they can replace them with books that will be taken out. So if you want, you know, these books to be in your local library, please go patronize your local library. And this will also give you a chance for free, if you have a local library, to test out books before purchasing them too. So there you go. So please patronize your local library if at all possible. Take care of yourselves, my lovelies. Bless. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.